السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة المتقين والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد. Welcome to part 4 of the series, the Fiqh of Fasting. Inshallah, today we'll be covering a few different sections. They're all quite small. We've got the bulk of it out of the way. We'll cover things like what is disliked, what was otherwise known as makruh, disliked, what is not disliked, and a few points in regards to who is excused from fasting and things of the sort, inshallah. So let's get straight into it. Ma yukrihu lis-sa'im, those actions which are disliked when fasting. So he starts off to mention about those things which are disliked. Okay, then he says that there's basically 7 things he summarizes as things which are disliked. We'll go through a few of them. Some of them are quite obvious as well. He says ذوق شيء, okay, bila udhr, that to taste something with no reason. Now, why would someone taste something? For example, a parent is trying to feed the child and maybe they're having to chew on some of the food to soften it. So they're inevitably going to be tasting the food. So there is a need. But as long as they do not swallow that food and that food doesn't go and that taste and the food doesn't go down the throat, then the fast is intact. Otherwise, it will break the fast. So one does need to be very careful. Another reason, or another thing which is disliked, is chewing something without a reason. Why there'll be a reason to chew would be similar to what I said before. وَالْقُبْلَةِ وَالْمُبَاشَرَةِ, that kissing and caressing, if one feels that they are not safe from ejaculating or reaching orgasm or leading to sexual intercourse, so then this is disliked if someone cannot control themselves, basically. To gather the saliva in the mouth and then to swallow it is another thing that's disliked. Again, remember, with all of these things that are disliked, it doesn't mean that they will break the fast. So it's not going to break the fast. Your fast is still valid. It's just that it's somewhat disliked. It's not good to do this, and one should stay away from these things. And to do anything, and to do anything which weakens a person, for example, cupping or giving blood or anything else of the sort, anything that weakens the body to the point that a person may feel extremely weak, where they may need to break the fast, then that's disliked. Then he goes on to those things which are not disliked whilst fasting. So he brings up the topic of kissing, caressing and so forth, where a person feels safe that they will not go into doing something which will then break the fast. In that case, it's okay. وَدَهْنُ الشَّارِبِ, to oil, rubbing oil onto the moustache. The application, kuhl, and the application of kuhl. We spoke about kuhl before, that is a bit like eyeliner. I don't know what the right exact word is, but the Prophet ﷺ would wear it. And sometimes the thing is with kuhl is that you will get certain parts, sometimes in your saliva, it'll come down to your saliva. So because the exception of the Prophet ﷺ, we know that he wore kuhl whilst fasting, hence why there's a bit of an exception with kuhl itself. But it's a bit like eyeliner as well. Cupping or hijama, cupping is not disliked unless, of course, it's making someone extremely weak, or acupuncture, anything of the sort. Fast, which is bloodletting. So giving blood as well wouldn't break the fast, but if someone is going to feel weakness through giving blood, it's probably better to avoid it. Using the miswak is fine. To gargle or put water into the nose is okay. As long as if it's for wudu or ghusl, then it's better to avoid. For any other reason, maybe you need to or having a bath is okay. All of these things are fine. When it comes to wudu or ghusl, a person just needs to it has the permissibility of staying away and should stay away from gargling, because then there's the danger of water going down the throat. But for any other reason, if a person is having a bath or something and water goes in the ears, is perfectly fine, there's nothing to worry about, it won't invalidate the fast. So these are some of the things that are dislikes, and some things that are not disliked whilst fasting. Now it comes on to those things which are recommended in fasting. وَمَا يُسْتَحَبُّ لَهُ ثَلَاثُ أَشْيَاء. There are three things which are recommended for a person whilst fasting. As-suhur, to do the sahri. So there are virtues in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ in regards to observing the sahri, or the sahur time. There's barakah and blessing in that time and in that food as well. So especially try to partake, even if it's just a sip of water or just one date or something small, just a morsel of food is good to do. وَتَأْخِيرُهُ, and the delaying of the sahri, okay, the pre-dawn meal. So trying to delay it is delaying it, meaning that rather than having your sahri really early in the night, delaying it to closer to the beginning of the fasting time. There's more barakah, there's more blessing in that, and there are hadith in that regards. وَتَعْجِيلُ الْفِطْرِ فِي غَيْرِ يَوْمِ غَيْمٍ. Okay, so basically to haste in breaking the fast on a day where there's no obstruction in the skies. So basically, once the Maghrib time has come in, there's no reason to delay it, then don't delay it. There's no extra virtue in prolonging the fast beyond than what is needed to. Yeah, if you're in a place where you don't know what the Maghrib time is, and you're trying to observe with your own eye, and then you delay it out of caution because you're not sure whether Maghrib has set in or not, then it's fine. But other than that, delaying it, thinking that you're doing something extra cautious when you know Maghrib time is set in at a specific time, then there's no virtue in that. The next segment is in regards to those reasons, fil awarid, the chapter in regards to those temporary conditions which will cause a person to not fast. Okay, they're excused from fasting due to certain conditions. So, who are these people? لمن خاف زيادة المرض, that person who fears the increasing of their illness. Okay, whatever the illness may be, they worry that this illness is going to increase, or is going to delay the recovery from the illness, but something may aggravate the illness. Now, as to what that illness may be, is always best to speak to your local imam, the mufti, to gain more clarification. And of course, speaking to the medical professionals in this regards as well. So you need to speak to both in this case. وَلِحَامِلْ وَمُرْضِعِ خَافٍ. Okay, for the وَلِحَامِلْ, so as someone who is pregnant, also it can be excused from fasting. Again, with pregnancy, and it comes to the person who's breastfeeding, so even if it's a nurse, the wet nurse, a nursing woman, or even a breastfeeding woman, even though it may not be she's not breastfeeding her own child, maybe someone else's child, so they can also be excused. It's in the hadith actually, as a matter of fact, that someone who's pregnant or is breastfeeding, that they are excused from fasting. Now, in regards to this, of course, in the UK or in countries with the northern hemisphere, the timings throughout the year do fluctuate, where sometimes in winter times the fasts are quite short. So it's possible that a person may be able to fast without it affecting anything else. So, and again, you will have to speak to a medical professional as well as your local imam and mufti in this regards, and take consultation. That's the best advice I'll give. Just because maybe with small fast that you could do, when the time is short, you could possibly fast. So in that case, do speak to the local imam and your health professional, the doctor or whatever else it may be. But other than that, there is leeway in not fasting. Okay. The other is khawf, which is fear. Okay, now such a fear that it's genuinely considered that something may happen to a person from fasting, and they may know this through experience or through warning from a doctor, or someone who has come to a point during their fast that where they've become extremely thirsty and extremely hungry, that they may become they may be on the verge of death. Again, someone like that is excused from having to fast. Along with someone who is breastfeeding, or a pregnant woman, one thing I forgot to mention was that if there's a fear that they're not just affecting themselves, their own health, but the health of the child, then again, there is that permissibility of one not having to fast, and Allah knows best. Now it comes on to the chapter of a musafir, a traveller. So we spoke about who is a traveller before. In essence, someone who travels more than 48 miles. In some opinions of the Hanafi school of fiqh is 51 miles. And wherever the destination is, they're staying there for less than 14 days or less. If they're staying more than 15 days or more, then regardless of whether they travelled 100 miles, they're still considered not a traveller, rather a resident. So someone who's a traveller, there is permission in them not having to fast. Now, of course, in our times, travelling is quite easy. So there's permissibility in fasting, but there's also the leeway of them not having to fast. Now there is another issue which I do want to mention, just because it is important to bring to people's attention, which is in regards to a person who is ill or has an excuse, has a valid excuse in Sharia to not fast, and such as an illness, and they end up passing away. Okay, they end up passing away. Then they've not had the chance to do the qada and so forth. Okay, legitimately they have not had the chance because they've been continuously sick. Well, for them there's nothing to worry about. But if somebody was ill during Ramadan, so they know they have to do the qada, okay, and their illness did recover from the illness, so in that case they will have to do qada. But maybe a couple of months have passed and they're still not done the qada. Well, then they should have it written down in their will as well. They should have it written down in their will that they haven't done the qada as of yet, and X amount of money needs to be given from their will towards covering or repaying for the zakat. The fast. And the amount to be given for the fidya, in that regards, you can always check, because the price as well, and the price of the fidya itself will always fluctuate and change depending on the economy. In just some miscellaneous rules in regards to qada, it's not a condition to fast the qada fast of Ramadan successively. You could do it one after the other. It's best to always do it as soon as possible and never delay them, because we don't know how long we're going to live for, but that's not a condition. In regards to someone that's extremely elderly and frail, they're known as Sheikh Fani, but basically they have the permission to break the fast if their health deems so, or even avoid fasting altogether depending on their health. But then they will have to pay fidya for every fast that's missed, and the fidya is the half a sa' of wheat, which is basically 1.6 kilos of wheat. Now no one really gives that, no one goes measuring the 1.6 kilos of wheat to a poor person. So giving the equivalent wealth to a poor person will be sufficient. Now, of course, the best thing is always going online or contacting a charity and getting them to do it on your behalf. just because finding someone is another task in of itself, as well as calculating it. Imam Shurun Bulali also brings a chapter in regards to breaking a fast, a voluntary fast. There's many chapters I've just missed out just because we don't need to go over them. But someone who is fasting of a nafil fast, so a voluntary fast, and they end up breaking it. So what is the rule with that? So where's the text? ويجوز للمطوع الفطر بلا عذر في رواية. That a person who's fasting an optional fast, they can break it without any excuse, without any legitimate reason. They can break it. Not a good thing to do, but they can. One reason which is completely valid and a good one that he mentions is when you are hosting a guest. So whether you are the guest or the host, it doesn't matter. It's better to break the fast, and he alludes to a certain hadith as well. It says it's best to do that. So whether you're the host or the guest, break the fast, just to accommodate your guests, and that's something that's you'll find to be extremely important in the hadith as well, entertaining your guests and looking after your guests. And if you do happen to break a voluntary fast for whatever reason, then do the qada of that one fast at a later time. Just don't do it, of course, on the Eid days, but you can do that qada at another time, inshallah. And that covers the rules of fasting, inshallah. Inshallah, next time we'll go over the rules of i'tikaf, and then that will conclude our whole topic. So until then, inshallah. جزاكم الله خير. سبحان الله وبحمده سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.